Now for this video I'm quickly going to talk about inequalities or inequations and a difference. An equation, remember we have the left hand side and the right hand side, and they're both equal, so there's an equal sign between the two. Now an inequality or an inequation, we don't have that equal sign, we don't have that anymore, we have something else. We either have the more than sign, which is this one right here, or we would have the more than or equal sign, which would be that sign right here, the less than sign, which would be this one, or the less than or equal sign. So in an equation, very similar to an equation, the difference being that there's no equal sign between left hand and right hand side, there's something else, either more than or equal, less than or less than or equal. Now you need to know how to graph those things, and for that you should know that the more than, if something's more than, we try to find out where it's more than. So I'll go for one example in a second. Draw an open dot and then go towards the, in this case, increasing side. So what I mean by this, if we have to graph the following inequality, so we have to graph x is more than 2, what we have to do is we have to go to, in this case we start at 2, it tells us 2. So at 2 we start, and tells us all of the numbers are more than 2. So that's more than 2 goes in this direction, it's increasing, so 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have to put our arrow in the direction where it's increasing, right? Because it tells us x is more than 2. And remember, the reason why it's open is because the more than sign has the open sign. Now the difference between the more than and more than or equal is a type of dot. So in the more than, which is this one right here, we just have our open dot, this one right there. But if it's more than or equal, so if it's that sign right here, then we have the full dot, which is colored in, right? That's the only difference, more or less. And then we also have less than, which is that sign. Now, same thing, we draw wherever it tells us where it's less than, we draw our first dot, and in this case, the arrow is going in the direction where the numbers are getting smaller. I'll go for one example here in a second as well. And same as with the less than or equal to. That's our sign, the less than or equal sign. And in this case, we draw a full colored in dot, and then point it in the direction where it's becoming less than, or so I'll show you one example for that. An example would be here. So x is less than or equal to 3. So again, we start, it tells us where to start, it tells us to start at 3. So that's right here. Now because it's less than or equal, we don't have the open dot, we have the colored in dot, which is something you need to remember. So it's colored in because it's less than or equal. And it's going to go in that direction because x is less than or equal 3. So less than 3 would be all of these numbers right here. Any of these numbers would be less than or equal. Right? So you have to color the dot in where it tells you to, and then go in the direction, in this case it tells you it's less than, so we have to go where the numbers are becoming less than 3. So you can get those kind of questions, or you can get a question like this. So what inequality is graphed on the number line below? So basically you have to write your inequation yourself. So it tells us we start at -1, right? So that's where that dot starts, it's -1, and it's an open dot, so it's going to be less than, right? Because that's the dot that goes in this direction towards the left hand side and has an open dot is the less than. So the whole thing is going to look like this. It's going to look like x is less than, which would be that sign right here. And what is less than? It tells us less than -1. And the way we know that is because it starts at -1, it's an open dot, which means it's less than, not less than or equal. That would be a full colored in dot. And it's going in the direction where the numbers are decreasing. Hence it's not more than, that's why it's less than, because the numbers are getting smaller and smaller. Right, so this is what you would have to write for that kind of question. Basically writing your equation. So you're either going to get it from a graph and you have to write your equation, or it's already on the graph and you have to draw it. So either or. I'm going to quickly show you how to solve inequalities, and it's important to know that inequalities are solved basically more or less the same way the equations are solved. So what I mean by that is we have here 3x minus 2 is bigger than 4. We do the same thing. First, move the plus or minus, so we have -3, so we do the opposite. So we do plus, so opposite of minus is plus, so we do plus 2. To remove this, that's -2 plus 2 is gone. And then we have left, on the left hand side we've got left 3x, and on the right hand side we've got left more than 4 plus 2, which is 6. and then we remove the times afterwards. Remember, there's a times between 3 and the x. We do the opposite, so we do it divided by, and now we have left 3 divided by 3 is 1, so it's cancelled out. So we have left, on the left hand side, we've left x, and the sign is still there, so it's x is more than 6 divided by 3, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. So that's the solution. X is more than 2. So same as the equations, just in this case the sign is different, that's all. Now there's only one difference when it comes to solving inequations and equations, and that's when we multiply or divide by a negative number. If we multiply or divide by a negative number, and only if we divide by a positive number, it doesn't matter, but if we divide or multiply by a negative number, we flip the sign. So I'll show you what that means. So if we have that same example as we did just now, so what we do first is we do the plus and minus, so minus 2, opposite is plus 2 to both sides, that cancels out. We're left with minus 3 x is more than 4 plus 2 is 6. Remember, there's a times in between the minus 3 and the x. We have to do the opposite operation, so we'll do divided by, and we'll divide both sides by minus 3 to get rid of both the 3 and the minus. So that would cancel out. Minus 3 divided by minus 3 is just 1. So we have left 1 times x, which is the same as x. And 6 divided by minus 3 becomes minus 2. But because we have multiplied by a negative number, or in this case divided by a negative number, so we divided by negative 3, we have to flip the sign. So here this was x was larger than 2 beforehand. Now we flip it, so this becomes the opposite sign, which means it looks like this afterwards. So x is smaller than minus 2. Alright, so remember, times and dividing by a negative number, at the end we just flip the sign. That's all that there's in terms of difference between solving inequations and solving equations.